Hey, local business hackers. I am super excited for you to hear this week's episode with Chris Himel, CEO and founder of the 3-Hour MBA and IV Biz Bash. During this episode, we're going to hear tips and tricks on how to maximize and utilize Facebook groups for lead generation and overall expansion of your organization. Also, his incredible story, which has gotten him to be one of the leaders in the IV therapy space. If you've been thinking about adding IV therapy to your business, or have some extra space and want to hear more, definitely look into this and listen to this episode where he talks about his IV Biz Bash, where once a year, all the experts from all over the world get together and talk all things IV therapy. And then lastly, hearing about his story between his father and him and what ultimately accelerated Chris to get to where he is today. Check it out. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Global Director of Business Development for Referrizer, joined today by serial entrepreneur, CEO, and founder of IV Biz Bash and 3-Hour MBA, Chris Himel. Chris, welcome to Local Business Hacks.
What's up, brother? Good to be here, man. I'm pumped.
Glad you share the same energy with me via Zoom. Chris, you have your hands in so many organizations, but the two that obviously are imperative to our partnership and success in this space is IV Biz Bash and our 3-Hour MBA. How did you get to this point in your career, and talk to us through that process?
It's an interesting journey to be in this position, to be honest. It's littered with just failure, or as we call them, like learning lessons. I ran a marketing agency for 11 years, and then I sold that, and I thought it was really cool. I was like 32 with a 7-figure exit, and like let my ego kind of get really hyped up. And then I launched a startup where we did lead gen for IV therapy clinics, kind of like a Zillow model, like third-party lead gen. And it failed so miserably. And I essentially just lost everything from what I gained from my exit, because I go all in. So I committed and poured everything into it. And then it just didn't work out the right way. And in the space of IV therapy, I saw the biggest challenge were automations, which is where Referrizer and software like what you guys have just helps so much. And then coaching, sales training, how to grow your company. So it was January last year. It's kind of crazy. It's just last year. I got introduced to this guy, Roland Frazier, and he has a model called Consulting for Equity. And so I was sat there, and I'll never forget this. And hopefully my ego is completely gone. It probably never will be, but I was riding first class to England because my wife's from there. And I just almost lost everything. We lost 85% of our income within 2 days. I found out a few things happened, and it was just like some things that happened that I wasn't aware of with our CFO. And then with the agency I sold, it was based on a buyout over 2 years based on revenue performance, et cetera. And I just felt like such a schmuck. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I had a 1-year-old daughter at the time. And I was just like, what the heck am I going to do? So I just met Roland October before and decided to do Consulting for Equity. I was like, I've done digital marketing for 11 years, and my dad was a sales trainer for 40. So I can grow companies. And within a month, I had doubled our income doing Consulting for Equity. And that led over the next 7 or 8 months where we just started taking equity in companies. They pay us a fee and a piece of the upside to take over. And we're just extremely good at growth. So we built an executive team, and so that's what led to there. And because of what I'm going to talk about today, my local business hack, I had partnered on a Facebook group with all IV clinic owners. And my dad was also a business coach for 40 years. And when he got diagnosed with Parkinson's, he kind of lost everything. So he was destitute. And I was sat there and I was like, I can't let him end his life this way. And he had 40 years of content. So I was like, I could build a coaching program for IV clinics around his content of being a business coach for 40 years. And that's where 3-Hour MBA was born. I was doing consulting, but not everyone can pay you 20 and 30K a month. The small business owners just can't do that. So I was like, there's got to be a way to get to them too. And that actually stemmed from a bartender in Miami. I was at NFT Miami, and I wanted to help this guy, but I couldn't because he wasn't able to pay the fee. So I was like, I'll build a coaching program where it's less cost and they still get everything. Everything we do in our coaching program is what we execute in all the companies with equity. And then, my partner in the Facebook group, she had always wanted to do an event, and I'd never run an event. So I was just stupid enough to not know how awful it can be on the back end. So we had 4 months. We said, we're going to do it on this date. We didn't even have event managers. We had no venue. We announced it. And within 4 months, it's the largest event in the IV therapy space. We ended up with over 500 people in the room. And this year we're looking at 2,500 people in Austin, Texas. So it's just you can see it's a long story, but it's like just all these weird coincidences. And when I say failures, it's like, sometimes one door closes, another opens. And that's how I ended up here and how I ended up meeting you and just doing some of the cool stuff we get to do every day.
Well, congrats on spelling up what you are today from what seems like could have been an epic failure where you close your doors and go, I'm going to go work for somebody else. So I'm proud of you for sticking to your entrepreneurial spirit and getting to this point. For people that haven't heard of these two organizations, talk to me about what they do and how can people get involved?
Yeah, so IV Biz Bash it's a yearly event now. This year's in Austin, Texas, where we bring in the top minds in the IV therapy space. So if you're a chiropractor or somebody who wants to add IV therapy and you want to learn everything there is, it's a 3-day event where we give you everything from the compliance side, where we have Jeff Cohen, one of the largest leaders in the legal space of IV therapy. We bring in the top CEOs of the biggest companies. Last year was really cool. We did a panel. We did a mobile IV panel and we did a retail IV. And the top CEOs got together and band together to give advice so they could grow the industry. Because, if you live on the creative plane, there is no competitive. Everyone grows and we all grow together. The more people hear about IV therapy, alternative medicine, the more likely you are to grow. And it was just cool to see the whole industry come together. And then this year we've got Kevin Harrington and Perry Belcher and some of the top minds. And we're working on some other big ones I can't announce yet, but it's kind of turned into this beast that we didn't mean to do. It was a complete accident. And we were fortunate. We had amazing event managers and the industry just band together in an amazing way. So that's IV Biz Bash. And then 3-hour mastery, which includes 3-hour IV mastery and 3-hour MBA. It's an all-inclusive program for people in the IV clinic space specifically. We cover business and growth and sales and marketing. And then we also have Anita, my partner, who's run an IV clinic for 5 years. She does all the compliance and regulatory and how to build your menu and all these things. And then we do group coaching every week. I do a live training every week where we bring in guest speakers from the top companies. And so that's the 3-hour mastery side, 3-hour MBA. There's all these coaching programs and it just can take so long to get there. And I like to learn from somebody who's already done it, skip all the hard work and just do what they did. So that's what we try to condense it down to, just do these things, which is where the 3-hour name came from. My whole portion of it is the 3-hour online course. And I give you everything you need to know to run a successful business on the business side, and then Anita's on the IV therapy side, the medical side.
Well, for those of you that haven't taken advantage of either of these things, obviously you need to. And Chris, what's the best way for people to find out about both of these opportunities?
Yeah, so just go to ivbizbash.com. That's IVBIZ bash.com. The reason it got named that, we let the Facebook group vote. And I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, so it's not a medical conference. We pump in EDM, we have specific DJs. We're dancing, we're laughing, we're breathing, and just bringing the room together, because without energy, you can't really learn truly. And then for 3-hour mastery, it's 3hourmba.com. The number 3 hour M is a marvelous ba.com. You can book a session with one of our team members there, or you can sign up online and join our Facebook group, which is IV Biz Start and Scale on Facebook. And that's where everyone comes together as an industry and just shares questions, notes, successes, things like that.
Awesome. So, Chris, I want to transition a little bit into the purpose behind our podcast, obviously being local business hacks. I can imagine that having your hands in so many organizations, and let alone these two, you've heard some stories over the years that have taught you some lessons. So I'm going to give the floor to you to let us know, what are those stories that taught that lesson?
So I'm thinking about coming on here today. I wanted to do one that was real and tied to the businesses I talked about. So I have one local business hack that, again, it was Roland Frazier who taught it to me. And if you don't know him, he's probably the smartest business person I've ever heard speak. And he runs circles around you. It's almost too much, but my brother got to know him. And if you really dig into his strategies, but what he calls them are traffic acquisitions. So that's what I'll talk about today. And there's 2 ways to think about them. There's ecosystem mergers, where you just find somebody who influences your customer and you become best friends with them. But then there's also traffic acquisitions where you're acquiring a piece of business, or you can't acquire Facebook groups legally, so you partner with them. But there's what he calls no money down acquisition. So you're not exchanging money, you're bringing your expertise to the group to help that group monetize. And so when I originally partnered with Anita on the group, it was because I had a IV clinic lead gen company, and I was going to I was going to pour value into the group with education and then leverage that to get leads for our lead gen company. And then that's what led to IV Biz Bash. So I literally just cold DM'd Anita and I was like, hey, you have this Facebook group with all these people in it. you're probably working all the time trying to keep up with it. We have processes in place. We can bring a VA to manage it, to do moderating and all these things. And we can also help you figure out a way to monetize all this work you've done over the past 3 years. So we essentially, we built a company, an LLC, and we became partners. And now we both own the group and we're just partners. There was no money exchange. We didn't buy it. And when you go and do these things with certain things like Facebook, you just make sure your legalities are all in place. But the way to think about it, something to think about is baby boomers. I'm sure you've seen the stat. The largest exchange of wealth is happening in the next 10 years. So if you own an alternative medicine clinic and it's local, let's just say, and there's somebody 65 who's been running it for 20 years and they're tired and they just want to just retire, but they don't have a plan because I think it's 5% of people are actually have enough money to retire. So they're sitting here. They don't want to run the business anymore, but they can't stop because they don't have the money. If you're young, even 30 to 50 or 60, look at a business that you could acquire locally for no money down. And Roland has a book out called Zero Money Down Acquisitions. I won't pretend like it's my idea. I just use it. And that's how we have equity in 17 companies now. And most of them are synergistic and drive traffic back and forth. Just to give you an idea, one of my companies, we drive leads for health insurance agents. And their ideal lead is a small business owner. And there's a site called flippa.com, FLIPPA.com, where people list their companies for sale. And you can go on there and someone could have 100,000 visits a month of small business owners, and they want you to buy it for $5,000. 100,000 people, if my conversion's 2%, I'm getting 2,000 leads that I sell for 30 each. So you can see where, and you don't need to do it. You don't need to come in and say, I'm going to operate this company fully. So when you think about acquiring like a local alternative medicine clinic, don't think, oh, I'm going to acquire this and I have to run it the way they're running it. You could acquire their email list, their customer list. So by acquiring their business, and when you look at a zero money down acquisition, you go into it and say, look, you want to retire. I want you to retire. I don't want all your clients to no longer have anywhere they can go. I will buy your company and I will distribute you a certain amount of profit per month for the rest of your life if you let me own this company from here on out. And you can make sure you get your business attorneys involved to structure it the right way. But if let's say they have 1,000 customers, now they're all your customers. So you don't have to go acquire new ones. It's to me, it's such a simple way to just massively grow your company. And all you got to do is find a local list of your competitors, figure out their age range, and then approach them in that way, especially with the baby boomer side. But even then, what is the stat? 96% of businesses fail in 10 years. So your competitors probably aren't doing that well. And they're probably in a lot of pain. And they probably love to just get rid of it and have a paycheck monthly for the rest of their life if they were just to sell to you, because you've got the processes and systems in place. And there's ways to find their information like seamless.ai and or .io, whichever it is. It's called Seamless, and you can get anyone's contact information based on their URL. But you can do it through Facebook groups. So a lot of our IV clinics that we work with struggle with recruiting. So I was working with one of the bigger ones, and I was like, why don't you go post in all the nurse Facebook groups that you're hiring? And one guy he was used to like 10 applications a week, and he got 100 the first week. And so you don't have to buy the companies. Like I'd say a baby step is partner with Facebook group admins, partner with businesses that already have your clientele as their customer, and really incentivize them to push people to your business. And, with IV clinics, it's, partner with the gym. But the biggest, caution I would say is don't just show up with a pamphlet and put it on their counter. Get to know the owner. They control the email list. They control what is going on. And if you have someone like Referrizer on your side and you get referrals from all of those, you can build out a referral system. There's so many cool things you can do to automate it where you're just constantly getting lead flow into your company. And I could go more in depth if you like, but it's the simplest way I've seen to growth. And it's led to, again, running IV BizBash. Only reason we have that is because of a Facebook group partnership. Same with my coaching program. I would have never built a program unless I saw how desperately this industry needed help. And so it's called a traffic acquisition. It's called a zero money down acquisition. And I think the biggest thing when people hear buying a company, they think it's super complicated and there's all this legal jargon and you got to get brokers and this and that. And it really, if it's human to human interaction, it's creating an agreement that you all agree upon, telling your lawyers, this is our agreement, and then they write it up and then you're done. And then you can roll all those people into your email list, or you can have it come from that company's email and they become your client because they're, hey, we're closing shop, but this is who's taking over the shop. And now you went with Facebook ads and Google ads and all these things. They're amazing. We spend a crazy amount on online ads, but something like that, instead of getting 50 new customers this month, you could get 1,000 overnight. And so when I look at marketing, it's time or money. So this is more on time. And if you don't have a ton of time, you're going to go spend on ads and do those things. But if you want to spend a small portion of your time investing in creating relationships with people that have your clients as their email list or their customer list, it's a lunch a week. You just say, hey, I'm going to have one lunch a week, or I'm going to have one Zoom a week that I'm looking to acquire somebody who has my client list.
Chris, that was one of the best hacks that we've heard on this.
You say that every episode.
No, I mean that. It's really unique. I think that you bring up a really good point. I'm just thinking about my parents' friends, and if you're listening to this, Craig, I'm thinking of you specifically. These guys and girls have, multi-million-dollar successful businesses that they all are desperate to just run from.
Yeah.
And I guess nobody's really verbalized it the way that you have. So I'm a little shocked.
Well, Roland, he verbalized it, but he's so smart. What he doesn't tell you is he was a criminal attorney. So he's an attorney at heart. So he thinks, so it can get a little, you got to be careful of your tax implications of having equity or owning multiple companies. And you need to have a really good CPA, business attorney. You need to have all these pieces in place. But it's so simple, and it's led us to, I can't even count, multi-millions of dollars in revenue just from traffic acquisitions. And it doesn't have to be so complicated. One of my goals in life is to take something really complex and make it simple. It's like, you just go partner with them at first, like get your feet in, create some partnerships where they're sending business your way and really make it valuable to them. And then once they see what you do and how you operate, then you can start to say, hey, you've sent me 20 clients this month. I can tell you're kind of tired. Do you want to sell your company to me? And they probably think, oh, I'll get a $4 million payout. But if there's 60, just think about it. So one of my clients at my agency, it was a window company, super profitable. They were $6 million a year. He made $2 million a year personally in profit. And his lifestyle was pretty expensive. And his offers were going to be around $4 to $5 million to acquire his company. That would last him 5 years based on his current lifestyle. So how does that
give him a percentage of sales?
Exactly. So, and if you have the systems and processes to grow it even further, because he stopped growing it. He didn't want to grow it. He was like, I make plenty of money. I don't need more customers. I don't need more headaches. You take it to 10 million. He's getting 10% of that. He's making his $1 million a year and he's happy with Larry, and you just ran off and now you have a whole nother customer list. So it's just small examples to just show you how, and especially right now in the next 10 years, there's going to be people shutting down businesses, which hurts the customer because now they have nowhere to go that they trust. Whereas you could be that person that they trust.
I love it. So long story short, don't just put up a sign, create a new business and say coming soon and then grand opening, but go ahead and purchase something that's already there and it's thriving. And that's awesome.
Why would you start from scratch when you could just go acquire something that's already built? I mean, I do see people are creating Facebook groups to compete with us, but we're so far along. I mean, they're not going to be able to keep up because ours is growing so fast. We're getting 20 new members a day and we're already 40x ahead of everyone else. It's like it skips 2 to 3 years of work that you don't need to do because someone else has already done it.
Love it. Love it. Awesome, Chris. Yeah. Well, transitioning off of hacks a little bit, what would you say, you talk about failure and learning from your mistakes, what would you say was your biggest failure over the last couple of years, and how did you really learn from that experience?
Well, I mentioned it already. That was pretty big. So look at my wife and be like, hey, kind of, sort of, we lost 85% of our income. And I don't currently know how I'm going to fix it. And I'd say that was pretty epic. That was a rough month. And I can't even think about it because you're looking at your daughter and you're like, my job was to sit here and support you. And I just lost it all. And there was just certain circumstances. So a couple of things I learned from it is you can't just trust somebody's going to do what they say they're going to do because of their title. I had hired a CFO and I just trusted everything they were doing. And I never really looked at the numbers. I stopped caring. I looked every couple of weeks just based on what they told me. So knowing your numbers in the business is massive. If you don't know that stuff, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a sales marketing guy and I hate numbers. But now, because of how much pain I suffered, I refuse to not look at them weekly. So I'm a big fan of the book Traction. So we do a weekly meeting with our leadership team and we look at all of our companies and their numbers and what stats are trending, and we fix issues in that meeting. So I'd say knowing your numbers was a big learning lesson. And yeah, I mean, I've started, it's over 33 companies or had equity in, and I only have 17 now. So it just goes to show not all of them went very well. And I think one of my biggest strengths is my propensity to just go and risk it. Just now with my family, I've set up foundations where if everything failed, we'd be okay. So I didn't have that previously and now we do. But I think being okay with risking it, that's what entrepreneurship is. Like, you have a 4% survival rate in 10 years. If you're an entrepreneur, you're pretty much a psychopath, because not many people would say, I have a 4% chance of success on this. I'm going to go for it. But in my mind, you're a gladiator and you're what propels the economy. Yeah. Like, you can see I got the gladiator picture right there. And then right there, we got that $1 million award. We did it in less than 2 months, which is the fastest it's ever been done. And that was just because I refused to, even with the event, it could have failed so many times, like just so many times. But persistence, in the book, Think and Grow Rich, chapter 9, this is one of the things you can tie to all the most successful people in history, is just show up every day. It's going to be hard. It's going to suck. And I was telling Carl before we started, I was like, today was a day where like things that could go wrong went wrong. And it's, well, what are we going to learn from this? And how do we use this to our advantage going forward versus pouting and moping and getting upset or getting angry, just persisting through it, showing up every day. My morning routine is everything. I'm very strict on it. I will not miss it just because do you want to hear it? It's pretty insane.
Yeah, we want to hear it.
All right. So alarm goes off at 5:30. My beats go on with something positive right when I wake up, because your conscious brain isn't awake enough. So if you throw something positive into it, it totally changes the trajectory of your day. So I have my beats on my nightstand. I put them on. I have breakfast immediately, just because that stops my hunger for the rest of the day. If you do that, there's all these studies and stuff. I chug a ton of lemon water. And then I come into my office, I eat my breakfast, and I journal. And I have a few different exercises I do there. And then I immediately sauna. And then I got the sauna behind me where I prime. Tony Robbins has a priming exercise I use off YouTube. So it's 3 things you're grateful for. Connecting. Yeah. And then connecting to the universe, whatever you believe in, and just feeling that connection. And then visualizing 3 things that are goals, that visualizing them as done. And then I immediately get out of there. I do Wim Hof breathing. And then I do my X3 bar. And then I jump in the cold plunge. And it's, if you can tell yourself to get into a cold plunge every morning, you can get through anything that comes on during the day. And every morning I do not want to get in that thing. I keep it at 50. And I did 10 minutes this morning. And it's kind of hard to go about your day from a place of fear when you've just shown yourself over 2 hours how much you can control your mind and how much you can get through, because all of those things are challenging to do. And so I'd say, yeah, my morning routine is like, it's a must. It's not a should. Like, I do it every day, no matter what's going on around me. And I give myself a break on Saturdays and Sundays. I just sauna and cold plunge. So I don't have to feel like I have to do a 2-hour routine on the weekends.
Chris, I'm so glad you shared that. I think morning routine is everything. It's amazing how many people I watch mope around and get on their first call at 9 o'clock and they're still half asleep. And I'm like, dude, I've done more than you're going to do all day before this call started.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys want to hear the most insane morning routine ever, check out the episode with Josh York from Gym Guys. He's got a wild one.
What does he do?
You got to listen to the episode.
All right, I'll listen.
I could never mimic the energy of how it's presented from my friend Josh.
Yeah.
It's on another level. I'm more like you. I wake up priming immediately. I have my tonal on the wall, and I'm getting to the cold shower part. That's been a challenge, but we're there.
Yeah.
The plunge is next.
Yeah. Oh, I got the plunge. It almost, because they're so expensive, I refuse to not use it every day. So because when I got it, my wife was like, "Oh, come on." But I was like, just
$5,000 big cooler.
Yeah. Well, because I bought one from Home Depot, like a deep freezer, and it's $500, but then it doesn't self-regulate. You're having to clean it you're having to buy ice all the time. It's just a whole thing. So this has been And we moved into our dream house on the ocean. So I'm sitting in my cold plunge, like looking out to the ocean. And so it's like, you can't really, I was talking to my buddy about this last week, just like looking out to the ocean. It's like, you can't really, I've found ways to get stressed, but it's pretty challenging at this point. Like, and I refuse to allow it to stay.
I'm looking at it right now, not to rub it in, but I love it. It's the greatest realism that exists. Chris, I got a really interesting question for you.
Hit me.
If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would it be?
Do they have to be dead?
We're gonna say, give me both. Give me somebody that's dead and alive.
All right. So alive, I go Tony Robbins. He's had a major impact on my life. Did an interview with my dad, like changed my family's life forever. And then dead, I'd probably go Andrew Carnegie, just because of his impact on the world. Like his quote was, I want to I can't remember it exactly, but I'm going to build so much wealth and then give it all away. And we owe libraries. We owe so much that most people don't even know. And he's the reason for Napoleon Hill even writing Think and Grow Rich. I'd definitely say, and he sounded funny, which I like, because I think life should be fun and business should be fun and having fun. So I think that'd be a really cool coffee. It'd probably be a pint, but we'd go either way.
And with Tony, it'd be tea and not coffee. But yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I agree. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, if you ever get that coffee date and want to bring a +1, I'm right here.
Well, I'm trying to get him to our event, but he's a tough little cookie to crack. Yeah.
Chris, going back to just a few years ago when you were 18, what tools in your toolkit that you have today do you wish that you could have armed yourself with back then?
I think it's something you can't really just tell someone to have, but it's emotional maturity. As you go through things, you build this wall of just not letting things get you emotional. And I even this morning had a really heated conversation with one of our partners, but I never lost my cool. I was just very, I just calm, cool, and collected. And an 18-year-old, I mean, if my mom didn't give me $20 for beer, I was like through the moon. So I think learn to embrace the challenges because it's going to build you into who you are is something I would say to them. And then if it was a skill set, I would say like definitely start investing earlier, because as an 18-year-old, you don't think about the compound interest side of things. And so I would have definitely done that to build an iron wall around the family quicker than we had to go just make more money to do it. But we could have, if I'd done that at 18, even $200 a day. There's this chart. If you start at 18 at $200 a month, it turns into like 3 million by the time you're 60 or something crazy. And you only have to do it for 5 years because of the compound interest. So I'd say that'd be a big lesson I wish I had earlier. And then, I mean, everything else, like, I don't think I'd want to tell them anything because everything that's led to now is why I'm here right now. I mean, I'm married, love my life. We met in Ireland at a hostel, completely coincidental. We have a beautiful daughter because of it. I don't want to mess that up. I could mess up that coincidence if I told them too much.
I love it. Super realistic. Chris, I'm going to let this be one of our last questions. And I'm getting a little personal because I have a very strong relationship with my own father. And I'm curious to hear your side. So if you were to be remembered for one thing, what would it be? And then also, if your dad was to be remembered for one thing, what would you think that would be?
Ooh, that's a good one. For me, I think just someone who was always lifting people up and was always there for whoever needed it. I have a giant heart. And then I also have built the head part of me where my brain can like execute and get things done and be there. So I think just someone who was like, no matter what was going on, I was there. And I've tried to be that rock, no matter what my family's going through, anyone I know. If someone's suffering, I want to jump in and help. So I'd say that would be part of it. And then just somebody who's had a lot of fun, because this is probably the most serious I've been on a podcast, just because we're talking real stuff. But I just love to have fun, like quote movies, joke around, and make light of some of the challenges we face. And then I think our dad taught us so much growing up. I owe everything to his. He helped me start my first company. He made us grow up on the richest part of town, so we saw what wealth was. We were the poorest kids there, but like then poor is like we lived in Ponte Vedra. It was like, but we were my friends. I've had 4 friends have $1 billion exits. So that was the wealth we grew up around. But he also made us play basketball on the north side, which is a pretty dicey part of Jacksonville, so that we saw that there's other sides to things. And If he was remembering anything, it'd be just what kind of a father he was. He just we didn't always have everything, and it wasn't always perfect, and it never will be. But he just, he put a lot of love into us and taught us so much. And really, he taught us that like everyone's equal. You're not better than anyone, and they're not better than you. And just treat everyone with kindness. I mean, the amount of my friends that had to move in with us because they were having family issues, and you would always welcome with open arms. So I think he'd be remembered for someone who he really poured into people and made everyone's lives a lot better.
So the H in Himel is definitely for heart.
Yeah, I would say the whole family. We're 4 brothers, and everybody's got giant heart. And that's because our mom's the heart and the dad was a lot of the head, but he was more stoic in his parenting, and my mom was more vocal. And so, all my brothers are entrepreneurs, and we're just, if you look at what we're all accomplishing, it's kind of crazy, and we owe that to them. And they've just been, she took me to my first Tony Robbins when I was 23. My little brother went to his first one when he was 11. So we were extremely fortunate to have the upbringing we did, where it wasn't just we got spoiled, but we were shown what it was like, and we had to work for it. But it was, I'd say he's got a pretty dang good legacy going based on, and I just got to help him. I got to hand him a really nice check in October of last year for his program, and that was like one of the best moments of my entire life.
Woo!
Yeah.
Well, Chris, congratulations. I'm jealous. I got a lot to look forward to in life and look up to you. You're killing it. I'm proud of you. I only got to walk on fire at 27 years old. So we're getting there. But
yeah,
I became a gladiator at 30.
Look at that. Beautiful. I've done that 5 times now, 6 times. And it still doesn't get easier.
Yeah, for those of you that want to know on the inside what we're talking about, when you graduate Tony Robbins Mastery, you become a gladiator.
Yeah.
And if you haven't checked out that program, we definitely recommend it. But for starters, start off at Ivy Biz Batch if you want to get in this space and learn. And Chris, how can people personally get a hold of you if they want to?
My email is chris@chrishimel.com. Pretty straightforward. My EA, Matt, will respond to anything that comes in. And because I'll say yes to everyone. So I had to put like a blocker in place, but just reach out. I'm social media at the real Chris Himel, and I'm pretty open. One of my favorite things to do on this earth is serve and to pour back to anyone who and this is the last story, but one of my friends owns a private jet company, and he was struggling to get pilots. And I was like, why don't you go post in all the pilot groups? The next morning he had 200 and something pilot applications. It was costing him like an insane, he told me the number, I don't want to mention it, but a lot of money because he couldn't pilot every plane. And he had it filled within a month just through Facebook groups. It's like everyone's going to Indeed and stuff, but I mean, that's where people engage and Facebook has really doubled down on Facebook groups. Like they want that. They see the engagement that they bring. And so it's not necessarily going to go away anytime soon. So I'd say I'd love to just serve and help anyone and everyone I can, no matter where they are in their path.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you from Chris Himel, who I butchered his last name this entire presentation, but that just goes to show who you are and what a man you are. Chris, I appreciate it from us at Referrizer, myself and the team all over the globe. We're excited to follow your journey.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate it, Carl. It's been amazing getting to know you. Can't wait to keep cracking on, man.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.